couple weeks ago, I reviewed the Doctor Who trading card game. I think I only mentioned once the fact that it was a British property. I find this interesting in hindsight because it just shows you how accessible that series is to everyone around the world. Unlike some properties where constantly reminding you that the main character is from the 60s and British is part of the bit. I know in retrospective a lot of people are kind of sick of this franchise, if they weren't turned off from day one. And the constant overexposure didn't help either.
Jay, don't you hate people who try to do Austin Powers impressions?
Yeah, baby, yeah.
Oh, behave!
But I have to admit, I got a kick out of Austin Powers when it first came out, and even though I'm not 12 anymore, I still do like parts of it, mainly for the Dr. Evil bits.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm about to travel through time. I bid you adieu.
Plus it did introduce a new generation to a very interesting cultural period.
You know, a lot's changed since 1967.
No doubt, love, but as long as people are still having promiscuous sex with many anonymous partners without protection, while at the same time experimenting with mind-expanding drugs in a consequence-free environment, I'll be sound as a pound.
Drugs and sex, yes. Mind-expanding? Not so much anymore.
I feel like a pilgrim from the friggin' 20s watching shit right now.
But I say the peak of the Powers craze was reached during the second sequel, and in my personal opinion, best in the series. Naturally, they were pumping out merch left and right. Thus the birth of the Austin Powers The Spy Who Shagged Me card game. Not Austin Powers the card game, just the one movie. So, should I be worried?
Yes.
But here's something interesting. This is the only card game I have that's rated PG-13. Well, I do have one other one that's rated XXX. Anyway, here's the starter set, comprised of two 30-card decks, one good and one evil. Oh, but I forgot which is which. The rulebook says you have to play against the opposite side, and you can't mix the cards. But I really can't see why you can't play good versus good or evil versus evil. The scoring mechanic is all the same. Each player starts with a shuffle deck from which they draw 6 cards. After every turn, each player must draw until they have 6 cards in their hands at all times. Each player can use 2 actions on their turn. These actions include playing a character card, attacking or seducing a character, using a swinger card, or using a happening card. Let's talk about playing an agent card. Naturally, this includes Austin Powers and Dr. Evil. But since the card game is based on the second movie, and only the second movie, you end up with a lot of incidental characters in play. Seriously, fembots. They're sexy and dangerous. The ideal candidate for this card game. Not in it, though.
What do we have?
The good deck mostly features go-go dancers and a couple of military personnel. And the evil deck, well, it isn't really evil at all. It's a bunch of characters from that string of gags about the rocket that's shaped like a dick.
Pecker! Wang! Willie! Johnson!
And that woman at the bar that tried to steal the Heineken. These characters weren't aligned with Dr. Evil in the movie. They were sort of just there. Wanda McLuff, the Birdwatcher, may be the most true neutral character in existence. I assume characters like Mufasa, Fat Bastard, Scott, and Mini-Me are a few of the rarer cards that you won't be able to find in the starter deck. But still, you couldn't include some nameless henchman? Not even the easily distracted guard? But on the plus side, this is the only card game in existence where you can play as Clint Howard. Side note, he was featured as a non-playable character in the Santa's with Muscles pen and paper RPG. Oh, that reminds me, Spoonie, worst Super Bowl party ever! But still, what's up with that rocket that looks like a penis? Well, it's an icon for cards that can be played as part of a chain. You know, the long cock joke in the movie? The joke part being long, not the cock. That would be basketball. Did South Park ever release a card game? If you play a character that has a rocket on it, your opponent is allowed to set one agent down on his side that has the rocket too. If they do, then you can set down another agent that has a rocket on it. This goes along until someone doesn't have any more cards with a rocket on it, or they just choose not to play one. Creating a game mechanic around one joke. Okay, that's pretty interesting. But it would have been nice if they had the actual rule printed out on the card.
Right, okay, people, you have to tell me these things, okay? I'm the boss.
Need the info.
Speaking of which, you also have to pay attention to the icon in the upper left. In keeping with the theme of the movie, agents are divided up into two groups. Shaggers, represented by the pair of lips, or maybe it's it's definitely lips. Then you have the assassins, represented by the gun. It's interesting to think that you can defeat an opponent by either killing them or sleeping with them in this game.
What the? What is he doing with his... Think about it, bro. What other weapon does he have?
It should be noted that assassins can kill anyone they want, but shaggers can only approach someone of the opposite sex. Santorum would approve this game for its lack of Santorum. That means my Swinger Austin Powers card is only effective against 2/5 of my Dr. Evil deck. And for some reason, the Dr. Evil deck has more shaggers than the Austin deck, and the Austin deck has more assassins. But before you assassinate or shag anybody, you need a frickin' bone card, which are basically how attacks are played in this game. But they are also the way you score points, in the form of mojo for the good deck, and ransom money for the evil deck. They work like this. Choose one of your cards to confront one of your opponents, but you need to see if they are a shagger or assassin. Each type has different requirements, or vibes, in order to pull off a successful move. This depends on what characters you have in play. For example, if my Cheery wants to shag my Dr. Evil, I need to make sure that all of my characters in play provide the right kind of vibes for my attack. Right now, Cheery doesn't provide enough vibes for the card that I want to play, but I can use one of my moves to play a Goldie card which has the one creepy vibe I was lacking. Then I can move Cheery forward and attack. Now it's my opponent's turn to see if they can counter my attack. But I declared this a shag battle, which means even though Dr. Evil is an assassin, he has to play his defenses as a shagger. If he doesn't have the required vibes to play a card under the shagging category, Dr. Evil is discarded and I score 40 points. 15 for the bone and 25 for my agent. The bone is discarded and my agent is returned to the lineup. The first player to get to 100 points wins the game. But let's say my opponent did have enough vibes to play a card. Then it's my turn to play another bone card. This goes on until one player can't or chooses not to play a card. The winner of the match is the player that played the last card. The losing agent is still sent to the discard pile, and the winner has even more cards to count towards their score. Sorry, Dr. Evil. You'll just have to wait another day to take a crack at my Cheery.
Right.
Now, if you're playing with more than 3 players, you can enact a special rule. If you can't play any more cards on your agent, you can ask someone to
Throw me a frickin' bone here.
This is an open invitation to any other players to play a bone on your character. This is tricky, because you only want to get involved if you know you can win. Because in exchange for helping that player, you get to score the points off the card that you helped play with. But if they lose, you get nothing, and you just wasted your card. Plus, you don't want to help someone on what could be their winning move. Likewise, you don't want to give someone else an opportunity to win the game if, they just need like 10 points or something. Next up, the Swinger cards, which are like items or events. But what's really unique about them is the fact that they have 2 outcomes. First is just a standard maneuver, like Evil Egg. Play on table. If Dr. Evil or Mini-Me is assassinated, you may place him on top of your deck. But, just like the bone cards, if you have the right vibes, you can perform an even more beneficial maneuver. If you have these vibes, take one agent from your discard pile and play them on the table. By the way, if the card says play on the table, that means the card's effects are constant throughout the game. If not, then it's discarded after you use it. Last, and definitely least, are the happening cards. These things suck balls, and they take up 1/6 of your deck. Basically, instead of playing cards right away, you have to do what's ever on the cards. Like, Pit of Liquid Hot Magma. Make a peace sign. Last player to do the same must return one of their active shaggers to their hand. Or Bridal Shower. Make an evil pinky smirk. Last player to do the same must return one of their active assassins to their hand.
Damn it!
And how the heck is this supposed to work with a 2-player game? You look like a jackass when you're doing this or this after you play a card. Along with the freaking boner rule, that just proves that this game was designed for a group bigger than 2. Drinking beer in a huge group playing games crowd. Furthermore, the idea of incorporating a good and evil deck is interesting, But this means if you want to start a collection of your own, buying your own starter deck becomes mandatory, since it would take you twice as long to build the good and evil deck if you were just buying booster cards. And buying the starter set wouldn't be so bad if this wasn't such a piss-poor starting deck. There are so many duplicates. Hey, here's an idea. Why don't you throw me a frickin' bone and introduce a little variety?
Who frickety who?
Instead of giving me 5 copies of the same card. There are usually rules against that crap. No, seriously, there are tournament rules in most games that ban more than 3 copies of a card. Did I really need 3 copies of the same identical character with the special ability that I can't use because I don't have the other card that triggers it?
That's not right.
And some rules just come out of nowhere. Just take a look at my favorite. Booster Shot is a swinger card, and it reads, open a sealed Austin Powers booster pack. Play 1 evil agent from it on the table. Place other evil cards in your hand. You may do this only once per game. I don't know whether I should hate this card for making me buy a booster pack of the Austin Powers trading card game every time I play it, or love it for allowing me to cheat every time I play. So yeah, I went online and bought 2 booster packs of the Austin Power trading card game. Don't worry, I didn't spend much on it. Like $2, and that includes shipping, so... Anyway, the point is I have a complete set in case I ever get in a game. No matter how unlikely that may be. So... yeah, I guess that's it. I guess I'll just put this up now, and... that's the end of the review. It can't hurt just to open one. Okay, so I got more boners, a happening, and a couple of swinger cards. One of which is the Time Beetle, which is like the Evil Egg, except it works on Austin. Also, I got a Shagging Dr. Evil, a Felicity Shagwell card, and everyone's favorite character, Barry Urban, the battering ram expert. You know, from that one scene, he was the linchpin of the whole movie. I mean, what if Barry had called in sick that day? They may have never opened that door. I just want to know if they ever made a card of Bio Officer Shiza here.
Charming.
Okay, I'm glad I did that. I found some interesting cards, and I came to the realization that some cards are the same in the good deck and the evil deck. You know, they're double-dipping abilities. So, yeah, you know, I'm glad I did that. I got it out of my system, and that way I don't need to... Okay, I found a friend, and we played a quick game, and I got a chance to open the second booster pack. His name's Alex. He's an old friend of high school from mine, so, you know, he was around during Austin Powers, and, you know, he showed interest, and, you know, it was, you know, he came over. He actually lives next door, you know. That's why I was able to get a hold of him so quickly, and, you know, never mind, let's just look at the cards. More boners, more swingers. This happening card actually prevents the other player from using assassins next turn. So, I rather like this one. And for the characters, I got another Wanda McLuff. That kind of pissed me off. But then I also got a Mufasa card. Not only was he one of my favorite parts of both Austin Powers 1 and 2.
I think my legs might be broken, but I'll try to stand up. Oh! Yes, they are broken.
Sorry.
I'll try the other leg. Oh!
But he has a special ability that allows him to return to your hand if he's defeated by an assassin. And also, I got Heather Graham in a bikini. I had a moment of weakness, and it paid off big. I regret nothing. Actually, I like the way this turned out. I have both a Shagger and an assassin version of main characters in both decks. My evil deck has the regenerative Mustafa, and my good deck has 2 Felicities, which is good because I have 3 copies of that Cheery card. And if I have a Felicity on my side of the field, playing her doesn't count as an action. But again, I don't know why I'm so excited. I don't know anybody that actually has a set of their own Austin Powers cards. But what was I expecting? The game is basically built around a bunch of catchphrases, sight gags, and stereotypes, but it could have been done a lot worse. I was actually surprised to see a lot of strategy in this game. You have to focus on both attacking your opponent's characters that benefit them the most, while defending the characters that benefit you the most. Not to mention the balance you have to find between using boner cards to attack and using them to defend. Use too many and you risk not being able to save a card. But if you don't attack at all, that just leaves your opponent open to gather more resources, allowing them to have stronger boners.
Right.
And by the way, I should point out this is the best card game so far to use photos in an effective way. For the most part, all the images are clear and crisp, and the general layout of each card is well designed. Note how the border is not just a square, but made up of several curves, colors, and patterns. I also like how the top edge falls just behind a character's head. It gives you a really nice sense of depth. Plus they did something that's very impressive, and that's create a card game that invokes the feelings of the movie. They used objects, characters, and settings in a way that correlates with the Austin Powers franchise. It's not just another cookie-cutter card game. It doesn't necessarily make it a fantastic card game, but... okay, well, let me put it this way. It's better than any of the Wayne's World video games.
Ring. I believe this knife is yours.
Okay.
Marvin.